Prime Minister was greeted by the Sri Lankan President as soon as he touched down, marking a promising start to his Indian Ocean outreach. In a landmark trip by an Indian Prime Minister to the island nation, Prime Minister Modi looks to revitalize bilateral ties with Sri Lanka. Now, in his two-day trip, Narendra Modi will hold top-level meetings with senior government officials to strengthen economic and defense relations. The Prime Minister's itinerary is marked with symbolic milestones, including the first-ever trip to the erstwhile LTTE stronghold Jaffna. On the Prime Minister's Colombo agenda is a strong pitch to offset the influence of Beijing in the Indian Ocean and reassert India's dominance. Prime Minister Modi will also push for more autonomy for the minority Tamil population. With a power-packed schedule, the Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka could mean the opening of a fresh diplomatic chapter. We have Maushmi joining us on the phone line. Maushmi, this is going to be a very, very significant trip as far as Prime Minister is concerned, coming as it does, the first trip in 27 years.
Yeah, that's right, Sanket. There are many parts to this visit, including the fact that it is the first time that an Indian Prime Minister would be visiting the Tamil-dominated Jaffna region. More importantly, this visit is also about strategic and economic cooperation. Sri Lanka will be looking up to India for more investments. India has been a big participant in Sri Lanka's infrastructural development. And Sri Lanka is now, after the war, civil war, is looking at moving forward, and it looks up to India as a big brother. But I will tell you, the schedule of the Indian Prime Minister is absolutely packed, starting right from the morning at 9 a.m. when he arrives for the ceremonial reception at the President's house, stretching up to evening post 9 p.m. He would be addressing the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. He would be going to the Mahabodhi Society and also to the IPKF memorials to give a salutation and homage to the Indian soldiers. So clearly this visit is also about feeling an emotional bond with its closest neighbor, Sri Lanka, which has been left in the lurch for a long period of time. And even as I stand, I can see the infrastructure development that China has been taking keen interest in Sri Lanka. There have been huge investments by China lately. If we talk about roads, rails, ports, China has been keeping a keen watch, and it does look at Sri Lanka as a strategic advantage, considering the close relations it has with India. So clearly, this is actually also a big pitch by India to reach out to its southern neighbor, to reach out to the ocean economies.
Absolutely. Right. Maushmi, my second question to you would be, apart from the symbolism, these symbolic visits that the Prime Minister is undertaking, what really is, the concrete engagement between these two countries? I mean, just as you mentioned, China has promised Sri Lanka infrastructure. There are roads, as you mentioned, there are flyovers, there are other, issues of engagement as far as Sri Lanka and China are concerned. What really is the point of engagement between Sri Lanka as well as India, apart from these visits?
Sanket, look, India, as I said, has always been one of the biggest investors in Sri Lanka. It is also one of the biggest importers of Sri Lankan goods. So Sri Lanka has always, and it's also one of the biggest donors to Sri Lanka. So clearly, Sri Lanka's, if you look at every aspect, the business aspect, the commerce aspect, the humanitarian aspect, the health aspect, in every aspect you have an Indian participation here in the Lankan economy. Clearly, that has been ever since many years. But with the new partnership, new closeness that Sri Lanka had developed with China, it had unsettled India. And we all know that the previous government of President Rajapaksa He was pro-China. He was some Chinese submarines had docked in Sri Lanka, which had clearly put Delhi on a very uncomfortable footing. So clearly now, from healthcare to education to commerce to looking at roads, rails, all these aspects, from infrastructure to the development cooperation to economic cooperation.
Okay.
There are lots of NRIs here who are heading big companies. There's the largest number of non-resident Indians here in Sri Lanka. So, and the Prime Minister would be meeting them as well. So this is a whole umbrella of different fields that India is actually looking at Sri Lanka. And the most important bond matter is that they would be looking for sealing an emotional bond because of the cultural connect, because of the historical connect. So the Indian Prime Minister would also be reaching out to the hearts of the Sri Lankans because here you have Indians who would be pushing India's case and the Chinese presence as far as in terms of people is concerned is not there. So it's all about a heart-to-heart connection and just reaching out to your old friend, your old younger brother perhaps, and trying to see a more consolidated and more equal bond.
Okay, Maushmi Singh joining us from Colombo. Many thanks at this moment. Maushmi, we'll of course keep coming back to you as and when that engagement with Sri Lanka continues. Modi at present in Colombo. He is going to visit. He has a very busy itinerary in the island nation. Now, the business community will be keenly eyeing Modi's visit to Sri Lanka. Headlines today caught up with corporate honchos on their expectations from the visit.
Finally, the Prime Minister has come. So, what are you hoping for the best?
We are really looking forward to this visit because Mr. Modi has created a real good impact with the Sri Lankan people, and everybody's expectations with the relationship between India and Sri Lanka is going to be very high.
During this Prime Minister visit, we expect much more because we expect much more.
He's inaugurating a railway track as well.
Yeah, I am very happy to say that Mr. Prime Minister, our Indian Prime Minister, is coming to inaugurate the railway line from Talai Pier to Madhu Road, which is around 60 kilometers. This is the last stretch of total northern railway track of 250 kilometers, which he will be inaugurating.
So you understand, rail tracks, the housing is also an important element. The Prime Minister is also going to distribute some houses in Jaffna, around 20,000 houses, and the Indian participation is a lot in construction and housing.
Yeah, India, in fact, I am Kiran Redkar. I am part of Ultradec Cement Aditya Birla Group's company, and we are operating a cement unit here for the last almost close to 15 years. And we are one of the leading suppliers, cement suppliers here, and entire cement supply comes from the India. So you can understand our contribution as a Indian contribution is very much here. We are associated with all major...
It's the first time in 28 years that an Indian Prime Minister has come visiting its southern neighbour. It's the first time ever that an Indian Premier would be visiting the politically sensitive, Tamil-dominated Jaffna city. As India reaches out to consolidate and strengthen its position in the Indian Ocean, watch all the action and updates of the Sri Lankan tour of the Indian Prime Minister with me, Maushmi Singh, and camera person Alok Bhatnagar from Ground Zero, Colombo. Only on Headlines Today.